It's the last one of these type of foundries in New Zealand. In 1970 there was about 50 or 60. Most of the castings now are coming from overseas, India and China. I'll be 96 next month.
This is clay that is added to the sand to make the sand stick together. Very finely ground clay, and when it gets wet, it makes the sand stick together. This is mixed with the sand as well. This is coal dust, very finely ground coal, and when the mould is poured, that catches on fire, and that will stop the sand from sticking to the casting when that catches on fire. So it happens very fast, it ignites very fast, and then it stops the sand from melting.
The situation is that the coke's got too dear, and cast iron is not as available as it used to be, and like it's that hard to get. You'd have had to chase all around the South Island for it, and it would have been too much.
Even the council did the dirty on us a few years ago and went overseas. All their manholes and stuff to go in the ground are all coming from India, and yeah, we were making them here for a long time.
And all the way these scrap metal dealers handle the scrap metal is all done with machines, and they don't have time to sort it. So cast iron's got to be sorted out. We use cast iron, it's got to be sorted out from the steel. And the amount that we needed to operate per year was going to get quite hard to get. It's out there, but it just doesn't get sorted. So it was getting, people weren't sorting it the same, so we'd have to put more work in to get it, not economic. Cast iron as a material, there's a lot of cast iron, but it's been superseded by other metals. Like a lot of aluminium now is used. It sort of caught us, but because the cast iron is not used the same, and so there's not so much scrap metal produced. This technology is still used around the world though. There's, the foundries in India will be doing it like this, if not even more primitive in some respects. So someone's got to do it. So what it does is it ends up from third world countries. Third world countries end up doing this type of work. When we turn into a third world country, we'll probably have to start doing it again. But watch that space, see what happens.
Bits of loose sand on the top, what are they for?
The family have always been in the foundry industry, going right back to Dad's father and his father were in the foundry industry. Foundry industries were a big thing in the early 90s. Everything had to be done in a foundry because there wasn't so much steel fabrication and that type of thing. So the foundry was a fairly essential industry in the 90s. So that's why there were so many about. In Timaru, there was 4 foundries in Timaru, and Dad's father, he was, like I said before, he was shareholdings in Wallace and Coopers, and then he went down and done a little bit on his own in another foundry for a few years, and after that, that's when he started up this one on this side. He bought this land cheap because it was swamp land, and so that's when he built this building. So the building's it's been well used, the building. We've got our money out of it.
Dad built that about 1930, and of course this was all excavated out of the bank by hand.
Just claying up the pot, so that's where all the metal goes in when it comes out of the furnace.
Why do you have to put clay in it?
Because it would melt through the steel otherwise. One every 5 minutes, basically. takes about 5 minutes to melt a pot full of metal. And all the slag runs out of that hole in the side there.
Coke is that hot that it turns the solids, what we call the scrap cast iron that we're feeding in the right sizes, it turns it into a liquid.
What he puts in that other end comes out as molten metal.
And then that liquid drips down over more coke and gets superheated as it's dripping down over the coke. And at the highest point its temperature gets to 2000 degrees C, and then when it reaches the bottom and it's collected at the bottom in a coke reservoir is at the bottom in the bed, we call it, of the furnace, and that collects up there, and when we get 120 kilos of molten metal in here, the man taps it out, puts the 120 into the pot, and then it gets poured.
Most of the stuff here that's used in the production we made ourselves, like, you know, all these boxes, all those things, and all the patterns have all been made here.
That's a roller, 30-inch roller, 30-inch flat roller. It's just flare. It's just flare. When the metal goes in, it expands, and it should hopefully stop it leaking out the side. Being chemical sand, it's hard, so it doesn't compress, so it can't seal up any joints like normal sand does. If this core doesn't touch, the metal will actually move the core, and it won't be in the centre, because there's an axle goes through that, so it's got to be in the centre of the ring.
You're quite happy with that? Never done it before. That is half an hour up. It was poured half an hour ago.
A lot of foundries use wooden patterns. We concentrated on aluminium, and some of the patterns that are 40-year-old are still as good as the day they were made, you know.
Plumbago on it stops the metal sticking to it as much.
What is it?
It's plumbago, it's graphite. The metal doesn't stick to it as much. It still sticks to it, but not as much. Protects the clay.
When it's up to the top of the slag hole and metal's coming out there, he will get a steel rod and he will break a sand bung that stops the metal from coming out when they block it up with a sand bung. So what he does when it's up to the slag hole, he will tap that sand bung and break it. And when he breaks it, the metal starts pouring out. And when the pot is full, he then slams another sand bung into it. So it's just sand that gets slammed into there and to stop the metal from coming out. The slag, we put limestone down the furnace, which is straight calcium. And when that calcium melts and joins up with all the rust and all the impurities that have been on the metal and purifies the iron, so it's a cleanser. So the limestone, which is very pure limestone, and it's 99% calcium. So that calcium melts, joins in with all the rust, and that's what we call slag that comes out the hole. And that sits on top of the metal. So as the metal's melting down, the slag is formed and the slag floats on top of the metal. So when the metal comes up and up, it comes out that hole and the slag flows out that hole. And when the metal starts flowing out that hole, we know we've got enough metal for a pot full. A lot of chemistry goes on. So in the process, you know, we're using sand that's got chemistry in it to hold it together, and we've got the chemistry of the metal that's all got to come together too. So it's probably the elements and chemistry that, and a lot of it we don't know, we just do it, but there's more in it than meets the eye. That we're using is the process that they first started to make steel in the steel industry was done this way, and our process is a very old process and it's been perfected, but it's basically the same as what they done when they first made steel.
Done by an expert.
Yeah, we're all working in unison. So there's a lot of communication to make sure that the process is going ahead right. So we're always looking at what each other's doing. One of the early reasons was, if you went back 15 years ago, the corporate world started to import stuff from overseas using third world labour, and then they turned into our competition. So in the end, our competition came from third world countries, and the corporate world were doing the importing. In the end, when we finish manufacturing here, this stuff will come in from overseas. But it's pretty basic sort of stuff, really. But it's people have got to realise that if it's not made here, it's made overseas. It's got to be an export dollar that's got to pay for that.